Our second speaker of the day is Jo Kellett, who's speaking on the conversation on menopause. Throughout her career, Jo has focused on women's health. After graduating from the Tisserand Institute, she set up a practice offering aromatherapy for women in pregnancy, trained to be a baby massage instructor, and she's developed her practice around these areas of a woman's journey. This has progressed as she got older and her own family has grown, moving through puberty, into fertility and on towards menopause, an area of her practice that Jo feels passionately about in supporting herself and her clients through this transition. Jo, thank you.
Sorry, can I make a request that we have that door open
Yes,
so there's a bit more?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, do we need it shut for the
Yeah,
aircon?
We need it shut.
No, I'll go.
Oh, okay,
No, I'm here,
okay.
sorry, I'm here.
We've got the chalk.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Yes,
Thank
it's
you,
warm in
thank
here.
you.
Okay, so can you hear me all right? Lovely. Okay, I'm trying to trip over the cable. So thanks, Gabriel. So yeah, a lot of you know me, which is lovely, and it's lovely to see some familiar faces in the audience. So as I'm just going to do a little bit of background, if that's okay. So as Gabriel mentioned, I trained at the Tisserand Institute, gosh, back in 1996. I always have to look at my dates because I forget. Went on to become an infant massage instructor and also did my teacher training in 2003. So I've been in private practice since 1996. I have taught at the Tisserand Institute, Essential Oil Therapeutics tutor, until its close in 2004. I've taught at Neal's Yard since 2006. I teach for IFPA, still teach for IFPA, massage and business skills. I've been a CPD provider since 2010, inspired when I was first asked to talk at one of the conferences. And I was like, yeah, I can do that, I can do that. And I'm now currently working back for Tisserand with a very extravagant title as Essential Expert, which has been embarrassing. And I've been working with them, creating some new blends, some very exciting new products. And our message there is aromatherapy for everyone. So it's obviously dealing with essential oils for the layperson. So a day does not go by, oh, I've got goosebumps already, when I do not give thanks for my career and where I'm at. I absolutely love what I do. I feel extremely fortunate. So thank you first to Karen and IFPA for the invite. It's always a very humbling experience to talk in front of my peers. I love passing on what I've learned, and I love teaching students, and I love doing my CPD, but golly, to stand in front of you guys is very, very humbling. Gosh, I feel really nervous. You know, some of you have been my teachers, so thank you very much. So when Karen contacted me, she said the theme for the conference and the AGM this year was communication, conversation and connection. So we are going to have a conversation on the menopause. As Gabriel said, as some of you know, my professional career has developed through many years and has kind of reflected my own journey. So again, how wonderfully lucky that we have that opportunity to bring our life experiences into what we do and for our clients. So I'm experienced in and offer treatments and CPD for fertility, pregnancy, puberty, and obviously now the menopause. I think you can see the path that I'm on. So how can essential oils and massage help us through the menopause? What benefits are there for using aromatherapy and help you through this time of change? And as professionals, I do believe it's important to share our knowledge and empower ourselves. Obviously I'm talking to a majority of women, but the guys can learn stuff here too. But so it's not only for ourselves, but obviously for our clients. I do believe that amongst the chaos that is out there, we can't not sort of have a sort of slight nod to what is going on in our world, that this is a time when women are gathering strength. We are gathering strength. What we need, what we tolerate, and how we want to live our lives. And I think this is an area of a woman's life that needs to be championed, and I'm happy to be part of that. So let's start. Thanks, Ian. So menopause comes from the Greek word menos meaning month and pausos meaning ending. So I don't need to tell you guys, but this is a naturally occurring phase of a woman's life. It is nothing to be fixed. It is nothing to be altered, it is just something to be embraced. So there are 3 stages. I love how most things break down into 3. There seem to be 3 stages for a lot of things out there in our lives and generally. So we have pre-menopause, perimenopause, and post-menopause. So, yeah. I kind of thought there'd be a lectern, so sorry if I'm looking down. So let's quickly just have a look at the terms. So pre-menopause is a very long period of time. It's the term used to describe the time from a woman's first period to the time of her last. Moving on. So perimenopause is the term used to describe a woman going through the menopause, peri meaning around. You know, books, statistics, everybody's different, everybody will have a different journey, which is what makes our work so exciting, that it's different for every single person. Any area of work that you are working in, there's always going to be differences, and again, that's such a wonderful experience for us as therapists. But approximately anywhere between 2 and 6 years, and I'm sure you're aware that the actual menopause is the point when a woman has experienced her last period and has had no further bleed for over a year, not 12 months. And then, thanks Ian, post-menopause, the remainder of a woman's life past her menopause. So, and thank you. So I'm going to ask you this question, and I should have changed the slide around. I think we're going to do the negative first. Let's finish with the positive. So how does our current society perceive menopause? So what are the negatives? You're going to have to shout out.
Hot flushes.
Hot flushes. Anxiety.
Memory.
Say again? Memory. Yeah, what's that? Hearing. Yeah, these are quite physical. Achy joints.
Sleep disturbance.
Grumpiness.
Mood swings.
Weight gain.
Sleep.
Confidence. Lack of confidence. Sleep disturbance. What's that one about? Jeez. Okay. What about what about how people perceive women? Invisible. Finished.
Losing the plot.
Take a hike. I should try not to swear. I apologise if I swear. Those have got a bit of a potty mouth. What other perceptions?
Awkward and difficult.
Awkward and difficult, okay. Ill. Okay, yeah, good, yeah. No. Wrong. Pardon?
You're not a person.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course you do. I know you do. Say again?
Not a person.
Not a
Having one of
person.
those
Invisibility,
moments.
yeah, the invisibility.
Take a while to make decisions.
Yes, yeah, take a while to make decisions, but that's a good thing, I find. Okay, positive. What are the positives? No PMS.
Coming into a really powerful time of life.
Yes, powerful time of life, definitely. I need
for
more.
me.
What else?
Time
don't
for me.
be positive or shout it as much as a negative.
That's the reason I'm here. That's the reason I'm here. Exactly. You know, and we're like that with a lot of things in life. Me, for one, I will hold my hand up. I find it so much easier to dwell on something negative that someone said as opposed to something lovely someone has said to me. You know, whether that's just me or human nature. But yeah, you're right. The positives are not as forthcoming. But there are positives. There are positives, definitely. Does anybody want to shout out any more?
Time to be more spiritual.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah.
And actually being invisible can be an advantage.
Yeah. Donnie.
The things you're talking about, I must admit, I've never experienced in my life, truly.
The physical or the
I'm
emotional?
87, and when I was teaching in China, many years ago,
Yeah.
I've been in aromatherapy 1963,
Yeah.
training initially. Now, one of the things I found, I couldn't understand why I couldn't find people in China or Malaysia with the menopausal symptoms,
Yeah.
any. And I looked at their diet.
Oh, absolutely. You're spot on.
Right.
You're spot on.
So, incorporating part of their diet in my essential oils,
Yeah.
I've never had a menopausal turn in my life. According to medicine, I still have an abundance of high natural estrogen.
Fantastic.
I'm still looking for a new man.
That helps. if you're inclined that way. Definitely, definitely.
I had 5 sons, and I had them like rabbits. I never had
I love you, Eve.
because I'm focused on I'm going to be slim tomorrow. But you see, using essentials daily, I'm not pickled in them, but I've used it daily all those years.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
There.
It's definitely.
I
I think.
Element of me looking at the Chinese,
Yeah.
although the Chinese are beginning to experience
Yes, because their diet is changing. Yeah.
because of Western diet.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
that's all
And I
it
think
is.
I think it is a multifaceted approach.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that
Yeah.
essential oils are the the be all and end all. And I'm going to talk about that definitely.
So
But
the only time I have your menopausal flush, etc., is when we're dealing with Brexit. So let's
Let's not get on to that one. Although I'm going to mention a tiny bit about that. Lovely, thank you, Ian. So, women in society. And another clip as well, please. Thank you. So, as again, I am talking to the converted, preaching to the converted. But I think it's nice to, give ourselves a good stand. So many ancient societies did obviously revere women for their innate knowledge and their power. Earth and nature are given the prenames mother to imply nurturing. Gaia was believed to have given the giver of man to Earth, and so began the human race. And in some cultures, goddesses are associated with Earth, motherhood, love, and household. Matriarch is taken from the Greek word, which refers to a society in which the leading role is taken by women, and especially by the mothers of the community. As the patriarch grew across the globe, mostly down to the advent of farming and ownership, families were able to accumulate possessions, which included the passing on and marrying off of the female to reproduce. I do see a slow change in attitude. Okay, it is slow, and there are parts of the world where unfortunately regression is definitely on the uprise. And yeah, we could get political. There is a strange movement in the world. My children, I've got a boy and a girl, so I have the delight of having both, as in sort of encouraging and making them aware of what is happening within them and their world around them. But someone said to me last night, my kids are growing up in a bubble. We do live in Brighton, so they live in a very tolerant city. And what I love about both my kids are, well, one's 16 and one's 20, their friends, they are inclusive, so inclusive in their ideas, what they do on a day-to-day basis. They're beginning to get aware of social and political changes. I mean, gosh, you must have seen the news yesterday. I mean, it was just amazing. And whether the kids fully understand, I really do feel, and I hope, I am a massive optimist that there is a change coming. Thank you. So Lou mentioned the word crone earlier. So let's have a look at the words that are associated with menopause. Let's sort of start on a sort of very basic level, and the language we use. I am a bit of a wordy. I do love words. I think words are very important. What's that? Actions speak louder than words. Yeah, they do, but I think you need the words to back it up as well. So, crone comes from the Greek word of time, chronological, keeping things in order, which really resonates with me. I do get accused of being a little bit sort of, power crazy, but it's nice, just keeping things in order. I've got a business and children, and, it's all in order. Or from the word corona, which is round, so thank you, Ian, which leads on to the word crown, which may have come from the shape of a bird's beak, and that obviously then relates to the word crow. And so there are these sort of dark associations with these words. But when you look at the etymology and sort of start exploring where these words have come from, they were actually good words. They were vibrant words, powerful, wise words. Then we have the word hag. Now this comes from, my research shows that this comes from the Old English that relates to a hedge, or an area cut off. So that comes back to that whole sort of idea as we moved from being slightly more nomadic into sort of living within communities. So a hag straddled the world between the wild and the enclosed dwellings of the population. She was a collector of plants, medicine, and a woman of prophetic and, I can't say this word, oracular powers. Yeah, you could see things. So again, it's wisdom and knowledge and an innate understanding. And then she had a halo. She would have had that sort of aura and specialness about her. And then we have the word witch. My kids love to call, my daughter particularly, she loves to call me a witch. And she says it with love. I couldn't find a definitive root, but I like the root wit and wise and wisdom from the Old English or Germanic term for root. And again, how lovely, you know, again that makes me think of the root and how beautiful it, with Lou talking about this area of our bodies of being our sort of root and our definition. And so a witch was believed to be someone who was, you know, had a craft of the wise, of wisdom. So all these terms were quite derogatory. They did become derogatory as communities and cultures change. And talking about our Western world, as church rule became more stringent, again back to the patriarchy that took hold, and the power and knowledge of women was vilified and became something that wasn't sort of considered to be, you know, taken seriously, let's say. Thanks, Ian. So how can we help? So if you just go to the first one, thank you. So I believe education is incredibly important. Just an interesting fact for you, puberty is introduced to children in year 5, that's primary school, it's about age 9 to 10. It's all very, obviously should be at that age, it's quite delicate, quite sort of, you know, jolly and fun, and they talk about the changes that occur physically in the body. Secondary education for children expands more on menstruation, introduces contraception, and talks about STDs. They do a little bit of exploration into the emotion of being in a relationship, but it stops there. So there's no sort of education of what happens, you know, and it's all geared around having babies. I was talking to my daughter about this the other day, and she didn't tell me this at the time, and I was really shocked to find this out, that actually in secondary school, when they talked more about periods, they asked the boys to leave the room. I was like, really? Really? I was really shocked by that. So awareness, how much do you know? How much do your clients know of the process, the physical side of the menopause? For me, this has always been a really important part. I am in awe daily about the human body. What a wonderful, amazing piece of wherever we've come from. And for me, it's always paramount to the understanding of any process. For those of you who have ever come on any of my CPD courses, I always look at the physical. I think it's really important to understand what is happening. Being aware of the physiological process, I think, is a very important part for yourselves and obviously your clients. Thank you. Seeking out the positive. Okay, I'm an optimist, but I struggle too. Change is scary, and that's what this is about. It's a change, it's a transition. But I think change keeps us alive, it keeps us interested, and it helps us acquire new skills. A lot of you and your clients will possibly be going through the very classic period of transitions they approach menopause. Potentially teenage children, potentially elderly parents, and possibly being in a long-term partnership. So what does all this bring to the table, the massage table? How can we change this transition into the positive? Sort of, you know, again, obvious things I'm sure that you think about for yourselves and your clients for any, anything they bring to you. You know, what are they doing? Creativity. You know, what is their creativity? What is their outlet? What are their hobbies, their interests, their clubs, their social meetings, their exercise? You know the stuff. I don't need to tell you. And yes, can we celebrate the transition? Yes, we can. I was asked to comment recently about, you know, the question was, can we celebrate the menopause? And yeah, exactly, as you say, you know, as you do say, there's not enough good stuff out there. Look how much negative stuff we could come up with, and we struggle a little more with the positive. So in the circle of grief that I'm sure a lot of you use, I use it a lot in practice, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, she talked about acceptance being the ultimate in any transition. And for those of you who are familiar with her circle, you know that it can be applied, as I said, to any massive moment of change or transition in our lives. Of course, we all waver between the stages of denial and anger and bargaining, depression. But don't get me wrong, there's some days when I don't particularly want to be at this stage, but ultimately celebrating, encouraging the positivity of what is a new period of time, as I, for one, move into this new chapter, surely for myself, for my own well-being, to approach it in a positive manner is only going to be a good thing. And then, thank you, the language we use, and we've already talked about that. Dismiss the words we use, let's laugh them off, let's re-educate our nearest and dearest. Again, sort of talking about the change, and I think there's a lot more chat around the menopause. You know, I believe that even only now, and this came up with the positivity, I'm beginning really now to understand who I am in my coming up to my 52nd year. I'm beginning to feel wise, and I think we need to communicate this to our daughters, our sons, our lovers and our friends. You know, this is not a bad thing. Thank you. So my thoughts, you know, and this is just me in relation to what I believe. What are our clients' domestic environment? You know, we do have the opportunity to inquire, to give our clients the opportunity to offload, if you like, or find out more about them. Where are they in their career, their relationships, their health? Definitely support. I think that's a really important thing, and possibly again something that I know I do sometimes find it hard to ask for support, but how wonderful it is to get the support. And again, so our awareness and wisdom. But we have to be humorous. I think we have to be humorous as well. So I hope you're not offended by the next slide. You'll see this anyway. Just a bit of fun. It's quite a sort of 1950s, possibly, image of a woman. But I do believe that menopause is being talked about, as I said, a little bit slowly, but it's becoming less taboo. And that's what we need to do. We need to break the taboo around this subject. Journalists are writing about it. I'm seeing a lot more about it on social media. BBC Breakfast did a special a few months back. It's a hot topic in female comedy. Periods always have been, but now we're getting women talking about the menopause. As you know, possibly a bit like periods were a few years ago. There's a lot of stronger women in our sort of awareness. Coming back to Brexit. I'm an absolute massive fan of Katja Adler, and who reports from Europe, and oh gosh, help me. Laura. Okay, that's if you're watching the BBC. But you know, there are powerful women out there. There are powerful women broadcasters, presenters, journalists, actors, comedians, and women in music who are of a certain age, and they don't feel old. I don't feel old. I'm in my early 50s. I do not feel old. And I don't think that is something that, you know, that's something that we need to change. We can facilitate this change. As I said, I read wonderful and see inspiring pieces on social media and other forms of communication about women who are championing this period of their lives. It doesn't have to all be about the negative. I know some of you will have watched this. Did you guys watch Fleabag, for example? Yeah, we got a few nods. I'm going to see the live performance tomorrow. I'm so excited. There's an amazing. If you haven't seen it, Google it. There's a brilliant scene with Kirsten Scott Thomas sitting in a bar, and she's talking to the main protagonist, Fleabag, and they talk about the menopause, and it's bloody hysterical. It's so funny, so funny. It's quite rude, but it's funny. Okay, so on to some more sort of worky stuff. Thanks, Ian. So The physical side, the physical symptoms of the menopause can be debilitating. So if you could bring those up for me, let's just keep going. That's lovely. Thanks. And I did put another one in, but unfortunately the slides had gone off to Craig already, so skin changes at the bottom, very important. So a couple of these came up in the negative, didn't they? It's the sleep disturbances. These are all things that we can very much help with. Of course we can in our practice. Anxiety with no discernible cause. Well, there is a cause, and again, if women are educated and understanding what is happening and the fluctuations with her hormones and what estrogen and progesterone do to our body and how they help us and the changes, then that's going to make more of an acceptance, an easier transition. When we understand something, we can move forward into acceptance. Inability to concentrate and forgetfulness. That's why I've got everything written down. Mood swings. And we're used to those. We're familiar with those through our menstrual journey. The changes in cycle, shorter and longer. That can be very difficult for a lot of women, knowing when her next period is going to come, if you've come out of a regular cycle, and again, understanding and being aware of what's happening and having the right stuff with you when you're out and about. Heavier or lighter bleed, loss of libido, vaginal dryness, and of course hot flushes and skin changes. And for clients, there are ones that seem to come up time and time again. The ones that I see a lot are the changes in sleep, anxiety, and the hot flushes and skin. They seem to be the four big ones. And obviously these are all connected. You're not going to have one without the other. Just like anything physical is going to give you an emotional, and everything emotional is going to give you a physical effect. For me, hot flushes tend to come when I'm slightly more anxious, or so I think, okay, I need to pull back on how I'm feeling. Just sitting there thinking about, oh my God, I've got to get up and talk. I could feel the heat rising. But I find it fascinating as well. I love to watch what's happening in my body. I'm in awe, again, of the physicality of what's happening, and I can feel it. And when it first started for me, I could feel the energy coming from the adrenals. It's now more sort of chest and face, which is not as nice because it's a lot more visible when I'm out and about. Sorry, 1 second, don't know. Let me just gather where I'm at. Yeah. So there are, in the orthodox world, there are a couple of rating scales, the modified Cooperman index and the menopausal rating scale. They are internationally medical recognised scales for women to be assessed on their symptoms. And as Eve very lovely pointed out, studies obviously do show different results from different ethnicity, different countries and different cultures. And of course that's going to be not just their diet, it's going to be a lot of different factors, as in how they are perceived as women within their communities, within their families, within their jobs, etc. But yeah, diet plays a really important part. One of my CPD days, when we talk about the menopause, we talk a lot about the effects of a good diet, because it's something so easy to change and make a significant difference. Thank you. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about, how am I doing for time? I can't find it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the oils. Very kindly, Pat has asked me to, I think all of us today, all the talks that we're going to be, a transcript will be available in essence, because I know some of you are going to go, where are the research? So all the sort of research and studies that I mentioned will obviously be a little bit more detailed in the publication, which will be out in the spring, because the autumn-winter one is almost ready, I believe. So, thanks Ian. So a survey of more than 10,000 women, aged 59 to 64, indicated that 75% used self-prescribed CAM, with nearly 40% consulting a CAM practitioner, and that aromatherapy was more likely to be used for anxiety and the hot flashes than other CAM modalities. Fabulous. Evidence review shows that essential oils affect hormonal neurotransmitter levels, with noted improvements in menopausal symptoms. Inhalation and massage were the methods utilised. So, thanks Ian. The essential oils in the trials to have positive effect for the menopause were citrus bergamia, salvia scalaria, cupressus sempervirens, jasmine and officinalis, lavandula angustifolia, citrus reticulata, citrus aurantium, mentha piperata, rosmarinus officinalis, Anthemis nobilis, Rosa damascena, Cananga odorata, and Citrus junos. I'm not saying that those are the only oils to use, and I'm not going to talk about all those oils. I'm going to, I think I've picked 8, I can't remember now, that I'm going to talk about particularly. But again, all those research and evidence base that I found will be in the article, so that will be coming for you in the future. So I'm going to talk about 8 oils. They're not. A lot of them are very sort of well, not average everyday oils, but I just had to pick some. I couldn't talk about all of them, so I've picked a few of my faves and why, and I'll also explain why I picked them. So again, those of you who know me know that I can't go anywhere without a bit of citrus, and bergamot does happen to be one of my all-time favourite oils. So, you know, we are focusing on the positive. And you know, I love to, when teaching, I love to use the oils and give keywords so that students have something to hook onto. And for me, bergamot is refreshing, uplifting, and sunny. I need to get some water. Sorry. So obviously, these are not the only properties that bergamot has, but these are ones that are relevant to what I'm talking about this morning. So for me, as an astringent, it is a very effective oil for excessive sweating, so hot flushes, and I've had some really good results with clients with bergamot and its astringent properties. Of course, it's an antidepressant and euphoric, so there we've got the frustration involved. You know, that any sort of transition has a level of frustration, and it's going to help clients with those sort of levels. Mood swings, great for insomnia. I love how wonderful bergamot is for insomnia. You know, it's a really that lovely uplifting. So you know, it has the power. Excuse me. Has the power to relax, but also sort of uplift us, but not energetically uplift us, not stimulators. I think I might have taken this from Gabriel. Helps stuck anger, increases our chance of rediscovering spontaneity and optimism. Does that sound familiar? Yeah. So a study in 2005 showed that bergamot was helpful for decreasing depressive symptoms on the Cooperman index, and that application was massage. So wonderful. Rock on bergamot. Next up, clary sage. Of course, we can't talk about women's hormonal journey without mentioning salvia scalaria. So for me, a euphoric, uplifting, and a mood enhancer. Again, positive, positive, positive. So I'm sure you use it in practice as a hormone regulator. So obviously not just for menstruation, but throughout a woman's hormonal journey. Great for puberty, fantastic for puberty. So for irregular menstruation, loss of libido, hot flushes, so again a hot flush, excessive perspiration, and a general uterine tonic. Antispasmodic, if women are still sort of suffering, particularly with dysmenorrhea, that can be very helpful there. And again, a euphoric, but more of a sort of sedative, so great for the depression, the anxiety involved, mood swings, irritability, unsure, etc. So encourages inspiration, it's emotionally uplifting. Again, what a wonderful oil. So in trials, it was shown that inhaling clary sage, so this was 2 drops on a cotton wool pad, 3 times a day over a 2-week period, significantly increases the levels of serotonin in the women that were studied. So, you know, it's an immediate, and that's sort of a bit of research that doesn't necessarily have to be in relation to menopause. It's uplifting and really sort of, you know, instilling that level of positivity in the fact that, yeah, it works. We know it works. Cypress, Cupressus sempervirens, everlast, the long-living. Earthy, strengthening, soothing. Yeah. So, as an emmenagogue, again, menstrual regulator, menorrhagia, astringent, so changes in the skin, oily skin, those sort of changes that we have sort of, lived through, possibly our teens and early 20s, and then get a bit of sort of lovely stability. And how, again, that can change for some women as they're approaching menopause, that sort of extra, you can start getting spots again. It's, oh, geez, what's that about? Excessive perspiration again, so hot flushes, night sweats again. Great diuretic, a great cleanser on the body, as I'm sure you're aware, and I'm sure you use it like that. So sort of, those sort of changes in the hormonal, in the menstruation cycle, a little bit of edema, a little bit of sort of changes in weight and sort of distribution around the body. So really good for flushing out, as you know, the sort of lymphatic there. And classically and empirically always been used as an emotional tonic, cypress, for nervous exhaustion, excessive weepiness. Honestly, I cry at anything. It's like, it feels like I'm pregnant again, the amount of tears that come rolling. But that's okay, it's all good. Overstretched emotions, push to the limit. Yeah, that really resonates with me. That's an area that I need to work on myself, where I feel overwhelmed because I haven't asked for help. So, so a study in 2002 showed that a blend of geranium, Roman chamomile and cypress showed overall improvement in menopausal symptoms, and that was an application through massage, and the study was massage just once a month. Thank you. Damiana, Ternera diffusa, what a fabulous smell. This oil always reminds me of fruit soaked in alcohol. It's sort of like some Christmassy sort of smell to it, if you're not familiar with it. So nourishing, I love that word. I love that word, nourishing. I use it quite a lot at the moment. Fortifying and supportive. So it's a great aphrodisiac, and we've got a lot of that empirical evidence from our partners in herbal medicine. And I'm sure you're possibly aware that it was getting hard to source because it was being brought up and supposedly being purported as a female Viagra. So, as I said, a very complex, warm aroma, and it's traditional from the Mayan Indians in South America. So I wonder whether Lou's had to go now. She's got on a plane and she's going to teach in America. She's such an international superstar. I meant to ask her. I wonder if they, use that in the work that she does. Anyway, what's really interesting about Damiana is its chemical makeup should be quite an expectorant-based. It's very high in 1,8-cineol and terpenophorol. But obviously we know empirically it's been shown to be a very hormonally balancing oil. So it's sort of considered one of the sort of fairly new essential oils in our cupboard. Not many suppliers have it on their list, but I do love it. I find it very helpful as a kidney tonic in our overloaded, Lou talked about that, adrenally exhausted world. For those of you who know Victoria well, she talks a lot about adrenally exhausted world that we live in. So it's very important to support our kidneys and our adrenals post-menopause, because that's where we're going to get our hormones beyond menopause are going to be coming from there. So aphrodisiac, very important. Low sexual energy, acceptance of self, a lot of that obviously around the menopause and how we feel about ourselves. And when we talked earlier about the negative issues, about more feeling invisible and past it and best, past our best. We're on to the best. We're moving forward. That's how I feel. Great nerve tonic, kidney tonic. So good for anxiety, panic attacks. Also good for chronic fatigue syndrome. Low vitality and adrenal exhaustion. And again, menagogue, so menopausal support and regular menstruation. Cheers, Ian. Thank you. Can't go anywhere without frankincense. Again, one of my faves. And this for me is, the amazing skin oil. It's a very dear friend of mine and a colleague, Elaine, who teaches massage at Neal's Yard. Some people know her. She's a bit like an angel, isn't she? She sort of wafts in and out, and she's got the most amazing skin. I remember saying to her years ago, and I was like, what are you doing? What do you use? She was like, darling, it's frankincense. Frankincense. So, yeah, that's it. If you're not using frankincense, just get it out, slap it on. obviously, you know, dilutions, stick to your dilutions, ladies and gentlemen. And obviously when you're dealing with your clients, make sure you're giving them the correct information. But yeah, frankincense. But of course it's got that beautiful, spiritually uplifting and expansive quality as well. So as well as being an absolutely top-notch skin oil, oh, I should have smelled some, shouldn't I, before I stood up. I'm beginning to feel less shaky. A wonderful ability to quieten the breath, bring the stillness, plant us strong and firm. I just, wow, I love frankincense so much. So as what we would call, you know, in our therapeutic, as an antidepressant, exhaustion, anxiety, general tonic, and obviously amazing skin quality. And as you know, when the resin exudes from the tree, if the tree is, you know, knocked by an animal or someone comes along and cuts it, so it's mimicking what it does for our skin on the tree. You know, it's hiding, it's protecting the scar underneath, so the tree has got time to heal underneath. And that's exactly what it can do for us in its skin rejuvenating, vulnerary, cicatrism, cytophilactic properties. And also, for me, transition. And again, sort of talking back again about the circle of grief and moving through into new areas. And I reach for frankincense so many times to help people on their journeys, on their transition, on their forward positivity. Because, you know, that's what for me, a lot of what frankincense is about. A chance to reflect, make space, contemplate and breathe. And again, you know, there is a movement, there is a sort of hopeful sort of feeling that is what we need to be fulfilled and to be creative. You know, frankincense, yeah, it's just amazing. I don't need to tell you guys, it's amazing. Lovely geranium, love geranium. So nice to be able to just talk about my favourite oils. Again, a wonderful skin tonic. So for me, you know, the balance. And Lou talked about balance, didn't she, in her talk? Yeah, it's finding that balance, isn't it? It's finding what works for us. And again, as I said to you earlier, you know, I really do feel that I'm beginning to understand myself at last. And it's all about finding that balance and finding, you know, what makes us individually feel good so that we can help our clients and our families and our friends and, you know, yeah. So balancing, regulating, harmonising. And that's what, you know, women will need at this point in their lives. So as a skin tonic, general skin tonic, again, a wonderful skin oil, you know, it has that lovely balancing effect. So again, you know, I use it all through, you know, puberty, pregnancy, etc. You know, it's a great, great skin tonic. Our lovely hormonal regulator, and studies have, you know, really shown, there's been a lot of work around geranium, with fibroids, endometriosis, you know, as well, there are some interesting studies out there that we can quote and say, yes, it works, as well as knowing it works. And it's an emotional regulator, antidepressant. So, you know, I find the flowers very sensual. I think you would probably agree with me there. You know, their beauty, their intricacy, how they look. I dabble a little in, you know, how oils look and then how that reflects in relation to our bodies. And I think obviously the flowers for the feminine are really, you know, that's a really easy transition to make. So in studies it was shown that the inhalation of certain essential oils, geranium being one of that, actually increased estrogen in saliva of women compared to the control group. And that also for women who were receiving massage, that their general menopause symptoms were reduced. Cool. We'll go back to a citrus. Lovely grapefruit, citrus paradisi. So refreshing, rejuvenating, we need a bit of rejuvenation so we don't feel invisible, we don't feel we're past it. Rejuvenation is really important and obviously really uplifting. I love the ability of the citrus oils to bring that uplift without being overstimulating, perhaps like, you know, rosemary or cardamom might make you feel. You know, so it's sort of uplifting, but it feels as safe. It doesn't feel too, you know, sort of too alarming. Because I think sometimes when you're in a state of sort of flux, you don't want to be overstimulated because then you can go the other way and just feel sort of really sort of, ooh, you know, like almost like you've had too much coffee, you can be sort of a little bit jittery. So the citrus oils are able to give us that uplift and positivity, but not make us feel too strung out, because we don't want that. So it's considered, obviously, as you know, a liver and gallbladder tonic. So coming back, again, I love what we was talking about the connection, obviously, with our indigestion. You know, anybody who suffers anxiety, they're going to have areas of their body that are going to flare up, whether it be their breath, their sleep, their digestion. So obviously thinking about how we move forward and move forward into menopause, because obviously with the changes in hormones that's going to affect our digestive system, there is a natural slowing down. So sort of tonifying and keeping that area really vital is again a really important part of moving into that different phase of our lives. Great diuretics, so again a really sort of lovely cleansing oil internally, good on the skin as well, and obviously a lovely euphoric, as I said, so uplifting, good for emotional congestion, bit of sort of stuck, need a little bit of sort of sunshine, which the citrus oils can do. So it's a great cleanser with its high limonene content, so it helps us cleanse us. It's great for when clients feel a bit sort of in despair, a little bit sort of sad and not being able to sort of move forward and into acceptance. It's a sort of reality check, if you like, but a good one, not too harsh, not too violent, that's not too strong a word. A real sort of like, yeah, it's okay. Grapefruit for me is, able to do that. And then last but not least, of course, we couldn't not talk about hormones and women and our lovely hormone journey without talking about rose. So again, that word, and nurture as well, that's another good one, nurture and nourish. Emotionally cleansing, very gentle, very beautiful. I'm sure you use it a lot for transition clients, not necessarily for menopause, but obviously it's an effect with grief and depression and bringing clients, helping clients through those areas. Past emotional trauma is good for really helping stuck areas. I can get a bit stuck, and rose can help me sort of move forward with frankincense. Loss of libido is great to encourage the femininity, encourage our sensuality. We are still wonderful sensual sexual beings, and that's a really important part of encouraging our clients to feel still in love with their bodies, in love with who they are. That for me is a really important part. Obviously it's a heart tonic. And yeah, with those hot sweats can come palpitations. You get your heart races, doesn't it? Because you feel exposed, you feel vulnerable. You're sitting there with a red face and thinking, gosh, can people feel the sweat, see the sweat running down me? So again, that lovely sort of capacity to make us feel still very supported and physically reduce palpitations. And again, of course, an amazing skin oil. Can't go wrong with rose. I know it's expensive, but you only don't need to go a long way. So it's been used in the same trials as I mentioned above for geranium. Rose was calmed anxiety in the women who were studied, lowered irritability, improved depression, and increased the salivary estrogen levels. For me, as I'm sure you would say the same, it's the epitome of femininity. Restores trust and opens our heart to receive love. That's kind of where I'm at really. As I said to you at the beginning, I think this is an area that we need to shout about. It needs to become normal, and for it to become normal, we need to talk about it a lot. Subjects that are slightly taboo need to be talked about until they become a bit boring, and then they become normal. So that's my ask to you, is to talk about menopause. Don't be ashamed of it. Don't be embarrassed by it. Jesus Christ, it's just a normal thing, isn't it? It's just totally normal. And as I said, I feel very, very fortunate and very honoured to be able to sort of talk about it and spread the message. And I hope you feel the same. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions for Jo, Louise?
quite a few of yours have an estrogenic effect. What about breast cancer survivors?
Yeah, that's something definitely to take into consideration. Obviously, you're dealing with your clients on a one-to-one basis, and you would be dealing with all the cautions of contraindications that you would be anyway. So, sort of follow the guidelines and the training you've had in relation to that.
Any other questions?
It's not really a question, it's just a comment about the impact that it can have on the genitourinary tract. It's actually, for a long while, I was working with somebody who thought that she'd got chronic systemic infection in the abdomen, and actually when it was further investigated, it realised it was just estrogen deficiency.
Wow.
Because not only does it atrophy the vagina, but it actually impacts on the urinary tract and the bladder and all of that. So getting caught short is and then she's now taking estrogen pessaries.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Really
Well, it's the whole thing, isn't it, around sort of care of everything, and as Lou talked about, looking after our whole system, and pelvic floor, and of course for a lot of women, it's an area that is tricky. Yeah, thank you for highlighting that.
Just another comment, really. Personally, I felt that I always liked to empower myself. So at the end of my 30s, I was in preparation and aware of how I felt about the oncoming thing of menopause. When it arrived, I didn't know when it was going, and this was well before any of the symptoms. And so that's where the impact of the oils and the dietary recommendations. So I think in our society as a whole, we talk about it at a younger age.
Absolutely.
As something that is another part of the adventure on the journey, and how we're going to feel strong about ourselves.
Yeah, it's how we talk to the
it's
younger
more
generation.
Something. It's not the big baddie that's going to catch you out, but actually you've prepared for it. And I found that there was a synchronicity in stuff that I was doing with liver cleansing and working with the moon with the liver cleanse. So I never, when I stopped my periods, I'd created a new rhythm, which was that I fast when it's the new moon and the full moon. So I actually still have because that was the thing I wanted to get my head around, was how was there going to be that rhythm?
Yes. You don't need to lose the rhythm.
Yeah, because the rhythm is a sort of part of our pulse and the way that we function in time and universally and all of that stuff. I like to engage on a planetary sort of level. So I found that very helpful, and I think the more people, men and women, talk about that through any age, then it's a great thing. And then the oils culture it for us and refine it.
It's not all about, as I said, I think it is very multifaceted, and I think with women and people around us, you find what works for you, don't you? And then and spread the word. Thank you.
Can I make a comment?
Please do.
I think also at this particular time, a woman experiences her children possibly leaving home.
Absolutely.
Yes. Syndrome.
Yes.
I think you also have to deal with aging parents.
I'm doing that.
Alzheimer's and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I actually think that some people have to deal with divorce and separation.
That's exactly what I was implying.
All those things.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I always say there's an oil for that.
Yeah.
But and thank you for a really good talk. But I think the other life events.
Oh yes.
And
that's exactly what I meant about teenage kids, elderly parents, and possibly long-term relationship. I've got I've just lost my mum very recently. Extremely elderly, poorly dad, two teenage kids. But luckily, I have a lovely new relationship going, so that's rather lovely. But you're right; it is a very classic period of time when women are dealing, if they are parents or whoever they're, wherever they are in their journey. There's nearly always those factors are coming in, and that's a massive undertaking as well. Yeah.
So, thank you
you, Jo. I'm really sorry to cut you
No,
off.
no, 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 do. I'm done.
Pastries.
Woo!
So we have got a coffee break now. Jo is, however, hanging about all day. You're not rushing off, are you?
No.